this video, we're going to review some of the features of MyLabsPlus. It's very similar to MyMathLab if you've ever used that before, but they are two different platforms that are housed on two different servers. So when you go to log in to MyLabsPlus for your Mitchell Community College course, you're going to want to click on the link that is provided in Moodle that says the MyLabsPlus website. It will open up in a new tab. It seems to prefer Firefox or Chrome. It does not seem to really like Internet Explorer. And it will bring you to our page, so you'll notice that our symbol will be up on the top right. You can then save this either as a shortcut or on your bookmarks tab up at the top, so that way every time that you want to go into MyLabsPlus, you don't have to log into Moodle to just click on that link, or you can make a note of what the URL is. When you're logging in for the first time, you can refer to the MyLabsPlus information sheet. It should be your student email from Mitchell Community College, and the default password is your birthday. Sometimes it's a 4-digit year, sometimes it's a 2-digit year, so try both if they don't cooperate. And if neither one of those work, if you've used it before, then it's your one that you've changed it to. And if all three of those don't work, you'll want to send me an email so that we can get the coordinator overwrite that password to allow you in. Once you get logged in, it will, if you're logging in for the first time, prompt you to go through the terms and agreement, and eventually get to the point where it's going to ask you for a access code or your credit card number. So if you purchase the access code from the bookstore, you can go ahead and put that in. If you're ready to purchase the code, you can go ahead and put your credit card in. And if you're neither one of those things, then you get a 2-week free trial. So you can click on free trial, and then you'll have full access for 2 weeks. But in 2 weeks, you'll get cut off. That prompt for either the access code or the credit card will come back up, and you won't be able to do anything else until you enter in that information. Now, if you're ready in a week to put in that code and you don't want to wait the full 2 weeks, it's pretty buried in there to be able to find out where to put that information is, so that you don't have to wait for the trial period to end. But the easiest way is probably just go ahead and let your trial period end, and then go ahead and put in your information. I'm going to click on the Math 152. If you're in Math 143, do not panic. The layout is exactly the same. The features are exactly the same. You'll just be looking at different content when it's all said and done. But you'll click on the blue link, and it will bring you to the course. The first thing that you're going to want to do once you get to the kind of the home page, that splash page, is to run the browser check, which should be, if you scroll down a little bit, right down there. You'll need quite a few things updated in order to get MyMathLab or MyLabsPlus to run correctly. So go ahead and go through that. Allow everything. Allow the pop-ups. Allow the cookies. Nobody's gotten a virus from MyLabsPlus. We've been using it for, gosh, at least I think 12 years. So you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about that. Off to the left, this is going to stay static for everything except for chapter contents. And when you click on here, it will load in this portion over there. You'll see these little people with the X's through it. They don't have a feature for me to toggle between student view and instructor view. So you're only going to see the things that don't have the little crossed out people on it. So you're always going to land on course home. And the only thing that's really on course home is kind of your next steps and what the calendar is. But if you kind of get lost in the different tabs that open up, you can always come to course home and start over again. By far, you're going to spend most of your time in homework. So when you click on homework, all the homework for both courses will be open for the semester. You'll see the due dates out to the left. And then when you click on these blue links, it will bring you into the homework. So I am actually going to click a little bit further down in section 3.3. And then you'll see all the homeworks that open up. These are all the questions that are in there. When it's due, what your current score is. You have unlimited attempts per question. I'll go through how you can make that happen. And then after the due date for this particular one, which would be June 18th, you can still access it, but you're going to get a 25% penalty on each question that you did after that. Not the whole assignment, unless you didn't do any of it, but only the questions that you did late. So it's still possible to get better than a 75 if you didn't wait for to do the whole assignment after the due date. You also have the option, if you want to go in after the due date to just kind of study for the final or the midterm, to go and practice without affecting your score. So you don't have to then do it all over again. You'll notice that there is partial credit that will be allowed. It's a little weird to get started. You have to actually click on one of these questions to begin. I'm just going to go ahead and click on question 1. And this is going to open up in a new window, but you can see off to the side you still have all of your access to those other tabs. I've noticed it does look a little bit different, this homework screen, depending on what operating system you're on and what internet browser you're using. So if yours looks a little different, do not panic. Each question is a little different, but there's a couple of things in here that we'll pick. You see these little arrows? They have a lot of drop-down boxes in MyLabsPlus. And so I'm going to go in and pick some of these things. Oop, actually, I'm going to leave that. And when you're done, what you'll do is you'll go ahead and check what your answers, if your answers are correct, down in the corner. Now, normally you get 3 attempts, but this is not a numerical question, as in that I didn't have to calculate a number. I'm just kind of picking symbols. So in this time, I'm only going to get 1 check before it says, hey, you're right or you're wrong. And I'm going to hit final check, and it's going to say, ooh, one of them's not quite right. And so I can try again. And you can see right now I have partial credit, because I got 3 of the 4 right. So each question's worth a point. I got 0.75 of a point. I got a 6 right now on the homework. And I got to try again. So now I can go in and fix what I have. And for the drop-down boxes, it is very often the same question. When you're calculating numbers, they do tend to change a little bit. And then I can hit final check and it says, yeah, you got it right. And I'm just going to hit the X so that you can see, oh, now that goes. And you could do that a kabillion times, right? There's no limit. You could just keep doing it over and over and over again. And if you don't want to sit there and keep trying different things that don't work, you can click on Question Help. And this is really nice. You have the textbook page that these things will be on. We're not going to use StatCrunch or TextHelp, but you'd have this Ask My Instructor. And what that will do is send me a link to your question, and I'll be able to pull up exactly what you're looking at and then comment on what's going on, give you some hints, and send it right back to you. And you also have this print, which is kind of nice for later on when the questions are much, much longer, and you can print out the whole assignment and it will show you all the steps. Even nicer, though, I'm going to see if I can find a short question, maybe, for us to do. There we go. I have some information here that means nothing to you right now, but you can see that there's only 1 part remaining. That's how I knew that this one was short. You'll notice on the other ones it said 3 or 2, so you know how many steps you need to go through. And let's say you get to this and you're like, I have no idea what they want me to do. None of this makes any sense. If I click on Question Help, you see I got a couple more choices when I have questions that have a numerical computation involved. I have Help Me Solve This and then View an Example. I would actually start with View an Example, because what View an Example is going to do is walk you through a question that's almost exactly like what you have. And so it's going to show you all the steps. I know that on this operating system, for some reason, it doesn't really get big enough for you to see it really well, but it goes through the whole thing. And even on this little question help, you could print that out. That's why I said this is a great feature for later on when you have a lot of steps. And then you can kind of go through and try this. I'm going to bring up my handy dandy calculator. And I'm going to pretend to get this wrong. Range, rule, approximation. Let's see what we have here. I'm going to put in just a 0.7 and do check answer. And it says, ooh, no, that's not right. This is what you want to do. So sometimes they give you hints and sometimes they don't. You click OK and you can say, oh, you can try again. So now I'm going to put in 7-3 and say check answer. And it says no, no. Usually get the same response, though. They don't have like multiple hints. And now it says specifically 3 decimal places. So I'm going to need to go 3, 3. Now at that point, knowing I only had 3 left, if I was like, ooh, I really don't know what's going on, or after I get it wrong, I can go with the question help and to help me solve this. I'll show you that after I do this final check so that you can see that we have that there. If I do help me solve this, the problem with help me solve this is it's going to help you solve this particular question, but then not give you the credit for it. Right, so it's going to kind of prompt you of what to do, and sometimes it has you interact, so you can see that there it's asking you to put something in before you can go to the next step. And sometimes it doesn't. But after you do all of that, you don't get credit for the question. You still have to do another one. So that's a little bit of a bummer. And you can see I didn't answer that last part, so I have a half, so I would need to kind of go through this again. And let's see, this is probably the worst part because sometimes how we word things in statistics is a little strange. And let's see, 0.92 times 15, 3. I'm going to say yes. And say, oh, no, I thought this is what I did. Plus, then, oh, I didn't do the divide by. Uh-oh, I lost it. I think it was 0.698. There we go. And now when I do final check, it says yay, and it will change it to correct it, and you're on your way. Now let's say you did a couple of questions and you don't have time to finish, so you hit save. And it goes back out. We can see that I'm going to get the calculator away, that we got these questions correct. So later on when you log back into Course Home and you go to homework, you'll be able to see where you left off because you'll be able to see the score. When you click back on here, I already did the first question, so I don't need to click here. I can just go to the one that I picked off on. So like if you only got 1 or 2 wrong and you were waiting for some feedback, you don't have to go through the whole thing again. You can go directly to that question and finish it up. Now here's the kind of the part that freaks people out. If you go to Gradebook, this is your grade for the course. So when you're checking to see what grade you have in a math course at Mitchell, you need to click on the grade book that is in MyLabsPlus, not in Moodle. Moodle does not have your homework. It will not have your test grades. When you click on grade book, I have a 17, so now it looks like I'm failing. So as soon as you click on a homework, it activates it and starts counting it, even if it's not due. So this, towards the beginning of the course, doesn't really affect people, but towards the end of the course, when you're at chapter 6, 7, or 8, and you kind of open up all the homeworks to see what to expect for the week, once you open them all, they get activated, and if you don't do anything, then it just puts in a 0 as a placeholder. And then people go check their grade, and the grade drops, like 5 points or 7 points, and everybody panics. It's not permanent. You can go in and do it over and over again. So you're going to spend most of your time in homework. I will not put quizzes and tests inside of MyLabsPlus, but you do have practice tests usually that you can go through. I would say they're probably harder than what we're going to do in the course. So if you can get through a lot of these, you're in good shape. You have the study plan, which is going to look at how you answered questions in your homework and say, oh, well, in chapter 3, you kind of had a hard time with this range rule thumb, so let's practice that. This is totally optional, as well as doing the sample quizzes and tests. I am not going to look at what you did and what you didn't do, But if you know you're having trouble with one particular item, or you're trying to get ready for that midterm that's up at the end of June, this is a good place to go to kind of study things that you are particularly having a difficult time with, because it looks at what you do and not what everybody else is doing. We already talked about grade books. I'm going to go to chapter contents. When you click on chapter contents, you can see that this splash page changes, and then this kind of shifts over. And you have access to all of the chapters that you need in the textbook. You may have access to a few extra sections. Let's say I want to go look at that range rule. I can go to 3 and then section 3.3. Click on multimedia e-text, and it's going to open up in yet another tab. It takes a little while for this guy to open up. It does not really like iPhone, so you can't really access MyLabsPlus on an iPhone. It likes tablets a little bit better if you have an iPad, but iPhone, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Androids are no problem. I would not recommend, doing your homework on a phone anyway, but just in case you, had a burning question while you were in the car, you can get in and look at a few things. And now here's your textbook. And once you're in, it's a little bit easier to navigate. You can click here and look at particular questions, or you can look at the end of the chapter. The textbook for stats is fantastic. The textbook for quantitative literacy is like, 4 out of 5 stars. I would say stats is like 5 out of 5 stars, but both of them have these little features where you can say, oh, well, what's going on here? And I want to watch a little video, and I'm sure the videos are going to be super boring, but at least they're there to help you. And if you kind of scroll and click on to next pages, you often have like try this, or any kind of simulations, and you can go through this way. You can print out pictures from the textbook. It's going to put an annoying watermark on the back, but at least you can get a couple of things printed out by going up to the print icon on the top right. It comes up gigantic, so you might have to make it smaller or bigger. You can highlight and do all kinds of cool things in here. In all likelihood, students don't normally actually read the math textbooks, but it's there in case you want to kind of check something out. So this is pretty helpful. You can, if you're doing a bunch of things, I would leave this open and then just go back to the other tab and then go back to chapter contents. Notice I put the student solutions manual in there. So if you're towards the end of the course for either 143 or 152, where the material gets a little bit more exciting, and you want to do a couple extra problems, but you're not really sure if they're right or wrong, you can check that in the student solutions manual. I'm going to go back one more to main menu, and then we're back where we were. So chapter contents, tools for success have some pretty nice features too. Sometimes there's videos, chapter review of videos, there's applets, so if you want to look at some different simulations without going through the full textbook. There's usually some kind of graphing calculator help down here that will be very helpful. And then sometimes there's study cards in both courses. We don't really need any unique study cards that you're going to need to dig up from here. I'll have them in Moodle for you. Last but not least is the multimedia library. I love the multimedia library because what you can do is say, all right, for example, hypothesis testing at the end of the course for statistics can be a little challenging, and so you may want to pull up all the resources that you have there and say, I'm going to select all of these things, and I say find now, and then I scroll, and I have all this really cool stuff that comes up. The textbook sections, the PowerPoints, which I have for you anyway in Moodle, but you have more section videos, more chapter review. I mean, there's a ton of material in here. Let's say you're like, well, I don't really need all of that stuff. I'm only really confused about this 8.3, and then you can just get the stuff for 8.3. So there is a ton of stuff in Multimedia Library. If you get stuck, of course, Google is your friend. You can always contact me. But the Multimedia Library is there, and what's nice about that, it is written by the same people as the textbook, so it uses the same kind of words and the same kinds of descriptions, and so it's a little bit more cohesive than maybe digging up some random video on YouTube. So that's MyMathLab. There is nothing that you can do in MyMathLab that I can't overdo, or change or override, so do not panic if you click the wrong button and it doesn't work. I can go in and I can change it. And then what you'll do when you're all done and you want to get the heck out of MyMathLab, you can just go up and sign out. And that is how I use MyLabsPlus.